All right. So this is a post I haven't got up yet. So I'm just going to talk about it here now. It's good enough? What do you mean good enough, John? What the fuck does that mean? Good enough? Could come up a little? All right. The PDX Lawfare and Chaos beat for February 10th. 14? What the hell is that? 23 is the date. It's a year, Dennis. Oh, remember 2014? I actually don't. I have no idea. It's good enough. I hate that. Good enough. I'm going to throw John out for saying good enough. We don't use that language here, John. We believe in excellence. And when I hear that phrase, my skin crawls. Good enough, sir. All right. Yeah, thank you, John. I have no idea what was happening. All right. This is the Lawfare and Chaos beat for the 10th of February. Anno Domino 2023. Oregon is awash in violent extremism, says Secretary of State Shamir Fagan, who was last seen sounding the klaxons over a dubious crisis in Oregon elections. Yeah, like a week or two ago, she tried to make a big stir, presenting her program, like a 5-point plan for dealing with a crisis in our elections, which aren't free enough. Oh, God. The supposed crisis in elections, and whenever Democrats say that, of course, they're saying it's too hard for illegals to vote and shit like that. But it's been the easiest state in which to vote. Oregon is. And anyway, so now she's come back. Her office, at least, has performed an audit on violent extremism. It appears we've been guilty of some extremisms here in Oregon. Where's that audit? Here's the audit. Oregon can do more to mitigate the alarming risk of domestic terrorism. And you might think she was talking about Antifa, but of course not. They're talking about the right-wingers. And the audit features on its front page this big picture of a right-winger, a Proud Boy type, breaking the glass door to the state capitol building. There was a Stop the Steal demonstration. It was actually a precursor of January 6th. It happened before. And these guys broke the glass doors, and I think some people got inside briefly. Nothing happened. But it was a huge deal here in Oregon. And played out, suspiciously like January 6th did, like maybe these guys were lured in. And in Washington State, a similar incident happened when Tiny Toisi, I guess he's Proud Boys, and his guys up there trespassed on the governor's mansion's property, protesting the alleged stolen election of 2020 on behalf of Trump. So before January 6th, these little January 6th played out here, at least. And those things didn't happen, just like January 6th. I always say this, nobody cares. But January 6th wouldn't have happened if Antifa hadn't started their campaign in 2020, rioting. I sort of watched the Proud Boys get gaslit into thinking that they too would be able to get away with the same stuff that Antifa gets away with. And here we are, it's almost 3 years on. Not only do they not get away with it, the Secretary of State's office is they're there. And then the second picture on this report on violent extremism in Oregon, known for Antifa and everything they represent. The second picture is, again, that same demonstration, the Stop the Steal demonstration at the state capitol, which is our little January 6th. Yeah. So anyway, so Shamir comes out with the report, and it doesn't mention Antifa at all, except, though this is a useful timeline, they've got a timeline here. And I guess the purpose of this timeline of significant events is to take the focus further off of Antifa, I guess. So they go back to 1984 to an infamous thing that happened in Oregon. Oldsters have heard it. Boomers have heard this story, probably. In the Dalles, Oregon, a guy who called himself the Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh had a little cult in the Dalles, Oregon, a small city not far from Portland, like 30 miles or something, maybe, inland. And they tried to take over the town, and they tried to take over the town by poisoning the salad bar at like the one restaurant in town. So everybody would go home and fall asleep. They basically poisoned the town. And then they, not having eaten at the salad bar, would go and vote themselves into office. This was the plan. Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh had written books, and he had gotten a good little following, in the 70s. I guess that didn't work, though, the Dalles. They never took over the Dalles. So they mentioned that, and that's neither right nor left. And then it's Ruby Ridge, 1992. That was in Idaho, of course, and that's right wing. 1995, the federal building in Oklahoma City, when Timothy McVeigh, a right-winger, bombed that building. 1996, the FBI Counterterrorism Center is established. Yeah, and that's bad news for us. It was established right after Timothy McVeigh, and it's even before 96. It's presumably not as corrupted as it is now, but even before it was corrupted with wokeism and all this now, it was already focused on so-called domestic terrorism, right-wing terrorism, which, I don't give a shit about myself. And it's going to be the pretext for them taking away your civil rights, of course. Then, in 98, the National Infrastructure Protection Center was established. I have no idea what that is, and I plan on looking into it. But it sounds like it's going to be a base for a lot of this shit that's coming down. The criminalization of dissent, your dissent. They're anticipating you. And they are anticipating perhaps the actual violent extremism, I think, that they talk about. In fact, if I was over there on that side, I would be looking over at us and thinking, what's wrong with you dead asses? Why aren't you rioting in the streets over these outrages? These daily, serial, innumerable outrages is all manner of outrage, right? That's our world. But, okay, in 2002, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security is established, and joint terrorism task forces are expanded to all 56 field divisions of the FBI. It's notable that in Portland, not in Oregon, it was Portland only. It was City of Portland only. I don't know what the state government did. But in Portland, we won't cooperate with Homeland Security in the Joint Task Forces because we think they're racist against the Muslims. Yeah, notable as they start to turn their attention on us. Remember what happened. It's very simple. There's one element. This is not the ultimate cause, but this is one massive proximate cause, and maybe a necessary factor in what's happening, is that our security state, CIA, NSA, everybody, the Berlin Wall came down in 1989. The Cold War was over, and they had no raison d'etre. Above all, they had no appeal for money anymore. They had no justification for the giant budgets anymore. And so they have something of a crisis. And of course, they should have been just thinking about China the whole time. They have something of a crisis now, and 9/11 sort of saved them. They pivoted instantly with impressive quickness. That massive ship of the security state turned, and started its long focus on Islamic terrorism. Now, my opinion is that what we've learned in a long time now, since 20 years plus, right, since 9/11, is that the threat of Islamic terrorism, at least in the domestic U.S., is vanishingly small, especially now. It is not the threat we thought it was going to be after 9/11. Of course, that didn't stop anybody back then. It didn't stop them for the 20 years. It's still not stopping them from funding certain things. But now we're so woke, we can't sustain it. And frankly, it's not there. It's getting hard to keep it going. Plus, the state doesn't really care about it. They don't really care about it, or they would, do something like control immigration. So now they can't do Muslim extremism anymore. It's been 20 years. They got a lot of money and a lot of juice out of it, but it's dried up. So what comes along? Naturally, domestic terrorism, us. And they're going to try and turn that massive, that turret of that massive fucking weaponry of theirs on us. They already are. And if they get away with it, what they get away with, it remains to be seen. Yeah. So in 2005, the Oregon these people can't even write they can't even edit their so-called audit. I assume this is the Homeland Security Council of Oregon that was established in 2005. I have no idea what they do. 2009, a mass shooting at Fort Hood, a military base in Texas, kills 13 people and injures more than 30 others. Now, you'll remember that is, in fact, a case of Muslim terrorism. That was this dopey major, a major who was actually a psychiatrist, right? In the army, a Muslim who went off one day and shot a bunch of people in the mess hall. So they don't mention that. And the next one up is June 17th, 2015. A white supremacist carries out a mass shooting at a predominantly black church in Charleston, South Carolina. That would be, what's his name with the bowl cut? January 2nd, 2016. The Malheur National Wildlife Refuge in Oregon is occupied by an armed group of far-right extremists. I think that was the incident where some rancher, was protesting what he called the confiscation of his land somewhere there. He might have been actually Idahoans. But anyway, it's all white supremacy, as you see all the way down, white supremacist turtles. August 11, 2017, the white supremacist rally takes place in Charlottesville, Virginia, involving multiple far-right groups. One person is killed after being run over by a car, and 30 people are injured. Yeah. August 28th, 2020. It's okay. Now we're getting into when I remember that well. I was there. It was rioting nightly, far left. Portland saw a high number of protests during the summer months of 2020 during one clash between ideologically opposed groups. A far-left extremist shot and killed a member of the opposing group. Yeah, they're all kind of bullshit. This was when Aaron Danielson, Proud Boy, was targeted by a Antifa crazy, Michael Reinhold, who just walked up to him and shot him in the chest on the street because he had the Proud Boy hat on or whatever. And of course, they kind of obscure that, don't they? Antifa's never mentioned. You hear white supremacist, far right. There's one mention of far left, but December 21st, 2020, far-right protesters breached the Oregon State Capitol. Multiple people are arrested, and a state legislator later found to have let them in is expelled from office. Yeah, so what happened there was they broke into the grounds I think, like the lawn, or this is maybe a separate incident I'm thinking about. Oregon State Capitol. Yeah, no, that's the one they're featuring on this. Yeah, it was almost a riot. They broke some glass doors, and then a right wing state senator or congressman opened a back door and let a dozen of them in to parade, basically. So they went in there and just, waved their signs and then went away. And this is our January 6th because we're pussies. And, you know, January 6th, 2021, a mob attacks the U.S. Capitol in Washington, assaulting law enforcement and vandalizing the building. Lawmakers are evacuated. Many people and members of law enforcement are injured. 5 people die as a result of the event. 4 police officers who responded ultimately die by suicide. The fucking right-wingers are suiciding us now. Can you believe that? Did those 4 police officers all commit suicide over that stupid fucking riot? What a bunch of pussies. I'm sorry. What the hell? Did they really? I mean, it's convenient. Of course, my conspiratorial mind might think, why are these guys getting offed? Are they getting Epstein? But I don't blame a bunch of rioters for them going off and killing themselves. We'll speak a little about suicide. We want to talk about that girl who was bullied into suicide by a bunch of dumb black bullies, and the appalling character that is the school principal. If you've seen the Daily Mail article, it's pretty outrageous. Cliven Bundy and his son took over a wildlife refuge. I think one of them was killed. Yeah, and it was, they're right wing, but I think it was a land dispute as well. Domestic terrorism, my ass. All right. Anyway, I'd like to read this whole thing to you. I won't. But the point is that it's going to try and define, violent extremism as right wing, obviously, and separate it from hate crimes and other things. And it's basically going to make it easier to prosecute, trying to, which basically means it's infringing on dissent, genuine dissent. It's going to make it harder to protest. Say, one way it'll do it is by criminalizing counter-protest. Now, again, this law, I read the law all the way through, and it could easily be deployed against Antifa. And maybe they're willing to do that. Maybe they're thinking, yeah, we'll even deploy. Oh, God, horrible. I don't know what that sounds like on the mic. Sorry. Maybe they are saying, yeah, we'll deploy it on Antifa, but I don't think so. Obviously, for obvious reasons, it would be naive to think they have any intention of applying this evenly. So the point is to criminalize protest a little bit more, and also to make it easier to sue people. In Oregon, they're trying to make it easier to file lawsuits against people for presumably intimidation or this or that. But of course, here we've already got law firms. Their whole thing is simply to file these sorts of lawsuits. We've got woke law firms here in Oregon. We don't have sort of an equivalent right-wing legal industry. One or two guys out there will represent Proud Boys or whatever, God damn this chair. But there are firms who are experienced at this, who, it's a part of their business to file these lawsuits. So that, right there is going to be big. Basically slap lawsuits, or I can expect from this SLAPP lawsuits, strategic litigation against public participation, is it? Which means, just lawfare. That's why this is the Lawfare and Chaos Beat. This is the Lawfare part. As again, the law as written could be applied to Antifa, but don't expect that. All right, let's just read a little news. We had a scooter shooter. I've seen this in other states. We've had one, at least one now. A man, this is Coin News, a man riding a scooter opened fire in downtown Portland on Sunday morning, shooting and injuring another man who had attempted to escape. Witness Greg Podolek said he ventured downtown for brunch when he saw the shooting at Southwest 2nd and Morrison. It was like pow, 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 Podolek said. As soon as we turned around the corner, instantly I saw a guy on a scooter chasing another guy holding a 4-foot metal pole. He brought a metal pole to a scooter fight. Podolek said the man running away with the pole vigorously shook the door of a building trying to get inside. Quote, I could tell by the look on his face that he was running for his life, Podolek said. The man with the scooter caught up to the door where he allegedly shot the man attempting to escape. Anyway, Podolek and another person rendered aid. Good for you, Mr. Podolek. And I was thinking, reading this, right? They were encouraging us a few months back, everybody carry Narcan. Yeah, right? Everybody, you just carry it because you never know. Do your part. Carry Narcan. And then I've seen this, and I'm thinking, well, we're all going to have to become medics. We're all going to have to become medics and carry little bags and to apply tourniquets and shit when we come across this stuff. All right, this story is called The Running Goats of Capitalism. The Running Goats of Capitalism. You know, it's scary how often I drop syllables like it's the start of what's happening to Biden right now, right? And other old people who go, they can't say shit. They can't, 4 or 5 syllables in a word, and they got to drop 1 or 2, right? They say, Biden does that shit all the time. I only do it because I'm hurrying along, mind you. My mind is going too fast for my tongue. That's what it is. All right. Anarchists cut a hole in the chain link fencing in Portland's nonprofit resident herd. That's a quote. They call it Portland's nonprofit resident herd, the Belmont Goats. They've got these 14 goats that, like 2010, they were introduced. Some real estate guy said, "Oh, we need these goats, and I want to keep these goats at this little stretch of land, and in Belmont. That's why they call the Belmont Goats. But they keep getting moved around town. And then they used to, I think, rent them out to go munch your lawn, right? Like they use goats as lawnmowers, basically. But they were really just the quirky thing, Portland type of thing. No, we should keep some goats in this little natural area that people can go stare at goats, right? We are the people that stare at goats here. Not like that disappointing movie. So anyway, that's the Belmont Goats, and they're at some place right now, which is yet another interim home, and it's abutting a homeless camp that's really rough, that the authorities have been signaling they're going to clear it out for like 6 months, and they've been going in there and trying to draw people out of there. A bad camp. So anyway, that's the background. Anarchists cut a hole in the chain link fencing around the Belmont Goats, and a few briefly wandered out before and corralled the goats, not Antifa. The vandals who left a note were not freeing the goats, mind you, but they see them as cloven-hooved accomplices of capitalism, whose quote-unquote comfort is the reason a neighboring homeless camp is scheduled to be cleared out to make room for one of the city's, quote, safe rest villages, unquote. Safe rest villages are fenced-in complexes of sheds. They'll have like 20 shed-size abodes where people sleep. And they house homeless and they're fenced in. One of our plans for homelessness. So anyway, they're going to move the homeless people out to move in the other homeless people. And naturally, the people who are there probably can't get beds in the safe rest village. Who knows how you get beds in these safe rest villages? Like 20 beds, literally 20 spots, and there are, thousands of homeless out there. And maybe more importantly is that, to get in any of these things, these housing things, they have to get off drugs and observe curfews and all these rules. And maybe most of them don't want to do that. So anyway, the anarchists left a note. They helpfully left a note. They say they're anarchists. Somebody cut a hole and they left a note and said they're anarchists. Maybe it's right-wingers doing a little trolling operation, a little hoax, a little false flag, a false note. Anyway, they left a note. And in the note it says, "In what reality is the comfort of 5 goats valued over the shelter of more than 15 people? So it's time for the Belmont goats to enjoy a little walk in the park." Oh, yeah. It's kind of sinister because they have to know that, well, they could get hurt, right? They could wander out into traffic. Who knows what could happen? Are the goats even safe? Maybe the goats aren't all friendly, They got those horns. They could gore a child, you know. I know these guys are idiots, and it's quite possible they don't think these things through even that far, but I'm pretty sure they understand the danger they're putting these people in. And the danger they're putting those goats in. I mean, look at the goats. Where are the goats? The Belmont goats. Here's their website. I prove anything like this. Maybe it's silly, but, here they are, the Belmont goats. This is a funny picture. I think this is hilarious. These people. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. This is a picture of their original home. There they are in a field. It's fenced off. And people come and just look at them, And they're goats. Now, some people probably say goats are inherently sinister. Have you seen that movie, The Witch? Right? But of course, their goats are friendly, and they're like dogs, just like all these animals. They're most mammals. They're animals capable of all kinds of feeling and stuff. Anyway. So anyway, I'm pro-goat, anti-Antifa. That's all that is. Then, so who was it? KGW sends a news crew out to talk about the goats and the circumstances with the homeless people there. And as they're there filming, a fight breaks out and shots are fired and somebody escapes into the woods. This is the thing that's happening now with our homeless too. It's just a new thing. Guns are appearing more often in homeless fights, and more guns are being fired in homeless camps and stuff. There are more guns in the hands of homeless people. Something that I always assumed, that you just can't keep a gun on the street long enough. It gets stolen too quickly, and then usually sold up for drugs. Well, now we're in a state maybe because...
A shooting at a Portland homeless camp, a team from KGW...
Oh, my ears. I'm so sorry. We'll turn that down a tad. Yeah, but now I'm hearing that the fentanyl, they can get hits of fentanyl for $1 or $2 now. And I've learned that the people that I've seen around downtown, you'll see them in a somewhat catatonic state. They're standing, but they're bent at the waist, and their head and arms are hanging down toward the sidewalk. These are fentanyl. I guess these are fentanyl highs that they're in the throes of. So yeah, the drugs are so plentiful and so cheap. They don't need money for food, and they can get food and services. And actually, they might need guns more now. I always harp on this, but it's true, and I've heard it from the homeless's scraggly-toothed mouth myself, that the worst problem about being homeless is the other homeless people, the ones who fuck with the weaker homeless people. So anyway, KGW goes out to cover the story, and
Who was there in the middle of the day as part of a broader story when a gunshot suddenly rang out. And while you will see how people reacted there in the moments after, we want to note you will not see or hear the shot itself being fired. Well, thanks for
Why
joining
not?
us. I'm David Moko. This violence came at a camp police describe as a
I won't be offended, David Moko. Is that your name, really? Anyway, Pete, he's just saying the police have said this camp is a trouble spot.
hot spot for crime, one the city already had plans to sweep and eventually to replace with a safe rest village. Let's bring in our Blair Best, who was there with one of our photojournalists. I mean, Blair, first off, we are so glad you're both okay, and we really appreciate you putting the story together. Walk us through what you saw.
Well, David, thank you. My photographer and I were at a large homeless encampment.
She's nice looking. She reminds me of Amber Heard. I like Amber Heard, the way she looks at me.
In North Portland near Willamette Boulevard. That's when we saw a fight break out between two men, then heard a gunshot before one of the men fell to the ground before getting up and hobbling off into the woods.
Be safe out there, sweetheart.
A fight between homeless people ended in a shooting Tuesday morning. This homeless camp in the St. John's neighborhood of North Portland has slowly grown into what Portland police are calling a hotspot where they patrol daily. The city posted notice last week to clear the camp.
As we were reporting on this story, we witnessed a fight between some of the homeless people living in this encampment. Shortly after, we heard a gunshot and watched one person fall to the ground. There was screaming to follow. Portland police arrived about 10 minutes later and actually interviewed us as witnesses. This really just goes to show the dangers that can come with some of these encampments.
The victim and suspect both ran off before they arrived. None of the people living in the camp would speak with police about what they saw. Even before the shooting on Tuesday, this camp has been on the radar of city officials. The city plans to build one of its safe rest villages at this very location. That plan has been a sore spot for the people currently living there. We spoke with some of the campers about that before the shooting.
And then they don't help out the people here.
So they've told you guys about this tiny home village that'll open, but they haven't said that you'd get a bed.
No.
No, they don't do anything.
And I've lived here for 6 years.
Would you want a spot in the tiny home village?
Oh, I would take one, yes, I would. And I think everyone would here.
Right next to the camp is another fixture in the community, the Belmont goats. In protest of the camp being removed, someone cut a hole in the goats' fence Monday night, letting them out.
Well, I got a call from one of the people who lives in the encampment that direction about 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30.
Robin Casey, who works with the Belmont goats, says it's not clear who cut the fence.
You know, we're kind of just trying to wrap our heads around why somebody would do that.
Casey says someone from the homeless camp helped find and return the goats.
I was like, oh no, they're gonna think one of us homeless people did that.
Whoever it was left a note. We showed it to those living at the camp.
People don't know where to go. Are desperate. Sweeps are cruel, inhuman.
Now, Portland police say they were originally told that someone had been shot in the leg. Now, once they arrived, officers were unable to find the victim or the shooter. The mayor's office also released a statement saying this shooting underscores the need for temporary shelter sites and safe rest villages.
Yeah, well, that's Portland. What Portland is going to be is a place that houses homeless. Yeah, that's our new industry, you know. Real businesses are moving out. In fact, they're abandoning downtown. There's something like a 40% vacancy rate. Still, all this time after the George Floyd riots, which they still will not, they won't acknowledge the impact that has had on all of it. So now the plan is, okay, we're going to go in there and turn all those empty office buildings downtown into apartments and solve our housing crisis. You know, and I fear that there are already quite a few low-income housing. Holy shit. Out there. And it's going to be mostly low-income housing, and downtown Portland is going to be about housing poor people and stragglers, social stragglers. Yeah, he quit. I don't know. I don't know if the campers did it or not. Yeah. You know, it could be one or more of the campers doing it without the other ones knowing it. You know, you saw the campers. They're not exactly organized. It is ironic that they have to move out of the way so that other people can be moved in, other homeless. But there's no way that you saw the condition those guys are in. They probably couldn't hack it, whatever the requirements are, the basic requirements of living in a safe rest village. Be clean and observe a curfew mostly. They couldn't hack it, you know. And it is ironic that Antifa wanted to render the goats homeless in defense of the homeless, but, you know, everything they do is kind of weird and ironic. I've got to sneeze, and I'm just waiting for the sneeze to go. Nasty. All right. I didn't know if you even care what's going on here in Portland, Oregon, do you? Oh gosh, yeah, well. We're going to take a look around the Northwest and get outside of Portland into nearby Washington State. A safe haven for teens' mutilation is the title of this one. Washington State legislators have introduced a bill, Senate Bill 5599, to amend laws requiring youth shelters to notify parents of runaways in their care if the child is, quote, seeking or receiving protected health care services, unquote. Yes, that we're talking about gender affirming surgery and abortion, basically. Not only can parental rights be lost, but parents can find themselves facing charges of abuse coming from their state estranged children. Quote, the law goes on to say, if there are compelling reasons not to notify the parent, the shelter or organization must instead notify the department. Now, it's a shittily, that's a word, written document, because they don't say, and I assume it's Child Protective Services, whatever they call it there in Washington State, but they don't have the department, as used here, in the definitions, which is basic for this stuff, right? I think laws and legal contracts, if you start out talking about, the department or the agency, or, somewhere down at the bottom, you say specifically what fucking government department or agency that is. Anyway, it's a quibble, but the point is, they don't have to notify parents anymore. If the kids turn up, minors turn up at these youth shelters, which are all uber woke anyway, or any of these progressive agencies, and they say, yeah, my parents don't approve of me transitioning, the parents are cut out right there. Now, they could find themselves being charged with child neglect or abuse or something, if at the same time that they're cut off from their kids, as you see as the law is written. And of course, this law comes alongside this law comes these other attempts that we've seen elsewhere to criminalize parental opposition itself to this stuff. Shelters and the like have always been required to report abuse. The new law cuts out the parents, not the state, which is encouraged to get involved by allying with progressive organizations against parents. Despite a friendly media, the measure is facing vigorous public opposition. The NPR story I'm quoting here was titled, "Bill Would Protect Runaway Youth Seeking Gender-Affirming Care." This is their article. If a teenager runs away from home and ends up in a shelter, are shelter staff required to inform parents? In Washington State, the answer is yes. But a bill now before the state legislature would make a few exceptions to this rule, including if the child has run away to seek gender-affirming care. State Senator Marco Elias, Democrat of Everett, I lived in Everett for a time, is one sponsor of the bill, which is currently working its way through the Senate Committee on Human Services. He says the measure would allow transgender kids who are not being supported at home to find safe accommodation. Boy, he's just saying it. You know, if you're a minor at home, your parents are saying, no, you don't do this. Come on over to the shelter. He's creating runaways. And I hope they're calling him out on this. This law will clearly create the runaways. It's not, oh, these kids turned up at our doorstep. These poor runaways turned up at our doorstep with this tale of woe about how their horrible ultra maggot dad doesn't want them to grow boobs, you know, or get bottom surgery. Right? No. They're sending out the signal. They're sending out the bat signal, the trans signal. Well, God, please somebody think for me, what would that trans symbol be? Ugh. They're sending out the trans symbol. Oh, come to us, kids, and we'll make sure you get that care. And that's going to come, you know, and if they pass this law, what comes along? Like I said, the criminalization of that opposition itself will be some sort of, it's coming. And then on the other hand will be, I don't know what they're doing in Washington State. We're already using public monies to fund a lot of these surgeries. Of course, if it's gender-affirming care, if it's necessity, of course it's health care. Of course we have to pay for it. And here they are with this thing, this weird thing with this transgender mania, having already reached bizarre proportions. Here is the plan itself to juice it up. You know, let's get this thing going, right? Oswald Spengler's asking about Wiccan covens in Astoria, Oregon. I don't, but I'd sure like to infiltrate one. Or maybe I'll just infiltrate an individual witch. All right. How's that for possession, baby? All right, anyway. Okay, like I said, Lee S. is sending out the trans signal with this one, and this is an outrage. The bill has prompted, NPR continues, considerable pushback as it is being discussed in Olympia this session. More than 4,500 people weighed in on the matter online, mostly in opposition, including parent Eric Pratt. Quote, I can imagine children running away from another state to Washington with this idea that they are going to be cared for outside the parental guidance that is necessary for their own health care, Pratt argued. Yeah, here's something I didn't consider when I started reading the article. It could create, it would make of Washington a sort of tourist, trans surgery tourist destination, right? You can't, your parents don't approve, and the law is against, you know, obviously the law in your state is sensible and says kids can't be mutilated with these barbaric procedures. Well, come over to Washington State. So not only we want to cut the parents out, the other states, which, you know, and it's really depressing to read articles like this, see this stuff like this, because this adds to my growing pessimism about the possibility that we could even create enclaves of our own, even create separate country or state anywhere where you can be free of this shit. They're not going to let some red America even have the sparsely populated parts of the country. They're not going to. Everything that I'm seeing right now leads me to suggest not only are they not going to allow an alternative America, a red state America, to break away, they're doing everything already to make sure it never happens. They can't allow that competitor America to be out there doing to them what they're doing, say here with this Washington State law, what they do to red states here, which is corral you into the so-called nation, you know, and basically corralling you into what is an empire, and then forcing you, because you're in that legal binding with all these blue state freaks, and by that circumstance, it's forcing their shit upon you. And you see the way it works in America isn't that that conservative alternatives can last. It's the nature of the leftist program, whatever it is, Bolshevism, progressivism, liberalism, whatever the fucking left is. I don't even know anymore. But it's in the nature of course, what's, truly scary and dangerous about the left is that everything's universal. All values are universal and they apply everywhere. And it's an outrage, that women on the other side of the earth can't get free and easy abortions, say, or whatever. It's in their credo that, alternatives can't exist. Alternatives to these things that they say are just unquestionably good. Democracy, individual rights, on down the line. And I say no. Individual rights is not the end. Even individual rights is not the end all be all of whatever social order we choose to, we manage to create. None of it is. But beside that point, and they don't really mean it. Obviously, they don't really care about rights. They don't really care about democracy. So I don't know anything about active Wiccan covens in Astoria. I like Astoria. It's a good place for a Wiccan coven. That's where they shot the Goonies. Remember? I've never seen that movie, and I don't understand why it's a cult classic. But Astoria is a great place for it. It's out there on it's not like on a point, jutting into, I guess it's the Columbia River right there. The mouth of the Columbia River is so wide. I think that's why it took them a long time to discover it. Mariners were cruising up and down the coast years ago, looking for, they were looking for the so-called Northwest Passage. They were looking for things they were looking for specifically for this great river they called the Oregon River for a while, which was Columbia. And they heard secondhand reports from Indians and stuff about this incredible river. And I think it's because it's like 3-4 miles across at the mouth when it finally gets to, the Pacific. So, I think it was just so wide that mariners would pass it by. Plus, it's hard to get in. So even if they're out there and they said, okay, let's go up this way and see what's further in here, like they should have, a few did, but it's just really hard to get in there because it's crazy. Anyway, that's where Astoria is. They have this huge miles-long bridge into Washington State from Astoria, and it's always misty. It's people there complaining about it. It's always like a little foggy and stuff. So it'd be perfect for the Wiccan coven. We'll go and find them. I hope, I hope there's some younger witches among them. All right, and here's Marco Lias, he, him, talking about the bill.
At the end of the day, I look forward to a future in Washington where every single family supports their trans youth to achieve the care and success that they need. Until that day, it's up to us to make sure that there are safe places for them to learn and grow and thrive. And this bill works to create that network of loving and supportive places so that all of our people can be successful and reach the potential that we were all given at our birth. At the end of the day, I look forward.
The potential we were all given up, but not the actuality. You don't hear anything about the actuality. Yeah. Yeah. So he's basically saying that, we want to create a network out there of quote unquote safe places where kids can go and get chopped up and parents can't do anything about it. All right, well, you want Wiccans? Let's look it up. I hate that I'm still using DuckDuckGo. Somebody get me an alternative, man. There are no real alternatives to Google and Wicca Astoria. It's probably a name of a place. Queens, Astoria, Oregon, man. Queens. Effing Queens, man. Find covens, pagans, spiritual groups in Oregon. Okay, there you go. Ask and ye shall receive. Using the power of the internet, we found the Wiccans. All right, so this is Mandragorama. Fuck. Right. Mandragorama Geeka. You know, fuck off. Mandragora. Okay. Mandragora Magic apparently is the name of this organization or individual. Dude, I'm just trying to say the name. And this is their site. It says, they got their little Satan star, I guess it is. Find covens, groups, and organizations. A network and resource for finding covens, pagans, spiritual groups, or like-minded individuals. Hail and welcome, witches, pagans, Wiccans, and heathens, to the Mandragora Magica homepage for Oregon. Albany, Astoria. Well, here you go. Astoria has the Children of Gaia. Cassandra Tradition Witchcraft. Contact name, Contact Raven Fire. This was updated 8/8/2022, so it's not that old. All right, Oswald, are you listening? The Children of Gaia say, we are Children of Gaia, a training coven that exists physically and virtually in Astoria, Oregon, and Atlanta, Georgia. Oh my God, they're doing this stuff on Zoom. They're having their Wiccan meetings on Zoom. We are Cassandra Tradition Witches. Our tradition is 20 years old. Oh God, it's hardly 20 years old. You know, I've got cheese in my freezer, older, created by a high priestess from a Gardnerian coven and her student. Between the two of us, we have over 60 years of experience. Sounds pretty menopausal to me, sweetheart. Though we are not Gardnerian, our high priestesses and founders are both third-degree high priestesses from a liberal Gardnerian line, and we have mad respect for British traditional Wicca. I love that they're all, there's Gardnerian, there's British traditional. There are degrees of priesthood. Following a Greco-Roman hearth culture with our rituals and practices created based on scholarship, but not Reconstructionist science, whatever that means. Hearth culture, Greco-Roman hearth culture sounds good to me. Can you just do something along those lines and leave out all the silly stuff? You're getting lag? Oh man, tell me. Is this sound bad? Anyway, let's wrap this up. Oswald, you're getting some lag. Or is that some sort of street slang? All right, in Bend, they're the witches of Central Oregon. Hillsboro, this is pretty close. Coristrix Coven. Tradition or spiritual path. Mosian. BTW. Coristrix is a Mosian coven that also teaches a Lateralis run outer court for a year and a day of classes typically starting in spring. Next dates, 2023, 2024. Spring classes are coming up, people. Mark your calendars. To inquire, please contact us and request an application. We cover traditional Wicca and practical witchcraft basics. Application screening process includes a written application and interview for selected candidates. Initiation is possible but not guaranteed upon completion of the year and a day of teaching. A year and a day of teaching. We do not charge for teaching. Interesting. Open to 21 years of age and above. You must have secure means of transportation. We welcome LGBTQ+. Note, we have a small dog and lots of stairs. Listen, the space is a little cramped and it's head-in parking only. That's hilarious. All right, I'm going to play music and check the sound on this thing. Are there any requests?
Battenti, suona chitarra mia, suona chitarra mia, sonia battenti, suona chitarra mia, sonia battenti. Li colpi giusti lo suonatore ti dà, li colpi giusti, suona chitarra mia, li colpi giusti, suona chitarra mia. Ruspiti dallo sonno, non più dormire, ruspiti dallo sonno, non più dormire, che non ci dormi qua, che non ci dormi quando, che non ci dormi quando c'avi mamari, e non ci dormi quando c'avi mamari. C'avi mamari da un letto di viole, c'avi mamari e li cuscini so, cuscini di seta, e li lenzuoli sono arrecamati, e li lenzuoli sono arrecamati. Arrecamati e li lenzuoli sono arrecamati, sono belli gli occhi tuoi, e gli occhi tuoi belli sugli fronni d'arbrelli, e gli occhi tuoi vivaci sugli fronni di Vamanti. Rapilu bella, rapilu bella, rapilu bella, che io t'avi da parlare, t'ava dicere due parole, tienila a mente, non ti scorda, t'ava dicere due parole, tienila a mente, non li scorda. Io battenti, suona chitarra mia, suona chitarra mia, sonia battenti, suona chitarra mia, sonia battenti, suona battenti, suona chitarra mia, sonia battenti, suona battenti. Sono battenti, sono battenti.
Thank you, Oswald, for I've tried to find the lyrics for Sona Battenti. I had them before when I first discovered the song, and I found the translated lyrics, and then I lost it, and I haven't been able to find them. So anyway, yeah, thank you for the lyrics, and we're all going to learn the song together and sing it in this big celebration one day. This is what I'm going to close on. This is it. We're going to end this brief broadcast and maybe do these every Friday at least. I know Friday's the worst time, but it's free time. So I might just do these like at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern time, Fridays, Portland weekend. That's it. Yeah, and I just want to, maybe this image to you is not so great. Maybe it repulses you. But the image I have is that we're all in this great big hall and we're celebrating because somehow we won. After all of this, somehow we won something. But it's a victory celebration, and I take the stage. And I lead us all on a rousing rendition of Sona Battente. Maybe this juiced up version here. Okay, wait a minute. I've got actual videos for that one. Thanks for tuning in. And, we'll see you soon. Read the blog. There's a fiction thread there. I'm gonna update the fiction thread this weekend. I hope so. Yeah. And it's really good, but nobody's ever gonna know. Maybe you guys. All right. Good night.
Battenti, suona chitarra mia, suoni a battenti, suona chitarra mia, suoni a battenti. I colpi giusti lo suona tutti i colpi giusti suona chitarra mia, i colpi giusti suona chitarra mia. Ruspiti dallo sonno, non più dormire, ruspiti dallo sonno. Dormi qua, e non ci dormi qua, e non ci dormi quando c'ha la bimba male. C'ha bimba mari e non ci dormi quando c'ha bimba mari, non letto di viole, non letto di viole, ci tu bacini. Ci nu faciti, non letto di viole, non letto di viole, ci lu facini. Materazzini, cuscini di seta, e lì lenzoli sogni arrecamati. Arrecamati sono belli l'occhitori, e l'occhitori belli sono i fronni d'arburelli, e l'occhitori vivaci sono i fronni di Robi belli, canta vida parlata.